Simone Taylor counted to 10 before speaking. It was a habit she'd developed over 20 years of being underestimated. Count to 10. Breathe. Then respond. Never react. Daniel Hayes, branch manager of First National Bank, stood in front of her with crossed arms and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We can't open an account without proper documentation," he said. Simone placed her Illinois driver's license on the counter, valid through 2027 clear photo, no issues. Daniel examined it like a forensic expert. "This looks suspicious," he declared. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. If you refuse, I'll call the police." Behind him, 15 customers filmed everything on their phones. Simone counted to 10 again. Then she pulled out her phone and made one call. 10 minutes later, the CEO of the entire bank network would walk through that door, and Daniel Hayes would discover that the woman in jeans and a hoodie he'd just humiliated wasn't a nobody. She was worth $2.3 billion, and she was about to fire his entire branch team. Monday morning, 9:47 a.m., Simone Taylor had dressed down on purpose. Jeans, Northwestern hoodie, sneakers, hair in a simple ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry except her wedding ring, a simple platinum band her husband had chosen 20 years ago when they were both broke graduate students dreaming of futures they could barely imagine. She looked like a graduate student, maybe a teacher. Definitely not like the CEO of Taylor Tech Solutions, a company valued at $2.3 billion. She'd done this deliberately. Wanted to see how First National Bank treated regular people. Wanted to see if the culture had changed since she'd worked here 15 years ago, when she'd been 27, young, optimistic, believing that hard work and talent would be enough. Before Richard Hayes taught her that some men saw women, especially black women, as objects to conquer rather than colleagues to respect. Apparently, nothing had changed. The bank lobby was typical. Marble floors imported from Italy, high ceilings that made voices echo, corporate art that cost too much and said nothing, abstract shapes in muted colors chosen by someone who'd never actually looked at them. Teller stations along one wall, each separated by bulletproof glass that sent a message, "We don't trust you." Private offices along the other, glass-walled, so managers could watch employees while pretending it was about transparency. A waiting area with uncomfortable chairs designed to make you leave quickly. Everything about the space was designed to remind you, we have the power, you don't. Simone had worked here 15 years ago. Same building, same lobby, different name tag. Back then, she'd been Simone Mitchell maiden name, a teller earning $28,000 a year while getting her MBA at night. Ambitious, hardworking, naive enough to believe merit mattered more than connections. Simone approached the reception desk. A young woman name tag reading Maria Rodriguez Customer Service looked up. Her smile was professional but tired. The smile of someone who'd been smiling all morning at people who didn't see her. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "I'd like to open a business account." "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I can wait." Maria glanced at the line behind Simone. 15 people. Monday morning rush. "It might be a while. Let me see if Mr. Hayes has time." She picked up the phone, spoke quietly, hung up. Her smile had changed, gotten tighter, more forced. "Mr. Hayes will see you through that door, second office on the right." Simone should have recognized the warning signs, should have noticed how Maria's hands shook slightly when she hung up, how her smile didn't reach her eyes, how she said, "Mr. Hayes," with the same tone people used to say dentist or audit. But Simone was focused on her mission, on testing the bank, on seeing if things had changed. She walked to Daniel Hayes's office, knocked, entered. Daniel looked up from his computer. 43 years old, white, expensive suit, hair gelled within an inch of its life. The kind of man who'd been told he was special his whole life and believed it. His eyes traveled over Simone, head to toe, taking inventory, dismissing. She'd seen that look 1,000 times, the look that said, "You don't belong here." "Yes, Not hello, not how can I help you, just yes, like Simone was interrupting something important. I'd like to open a business account, Simone said. Her voice was calm, professional, giving nothing away. We require appointments for new business accounts. The website says walk-ins are welcome. The website is outdated. Daniel hadn't moved, hadn't offered her a seat, just sat there, fingers steepled, waiting for her to leave. I can wait for your next opening. We're fully booked today. Tomorrow. Booked. This week. Daniel smiled, that same smile that didn't reach his eyes. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. First National Bank has certain standards for our business clients. I don't think we're the right fit for whatever business you're running. The pause before business was deliberate, loaded, implying that whatever Simone did couldn't possibly be legitimate. I haven't told you what my business is. I can guess. There it was. The assumption, the judgment, the dismissal. Simone felt the familiar burn of anger. But she'd learned long ago that showing anger as a black woman meant being labeled aggressive, difficult. So she counted to 10. Breathed. I have all the necessary documentation, she said. Business registration, tax ID, initial deposit check. She pulled papers from her bag, placed them on Daniel's desk. He didn't look at them. I'll need to verify these. That could take weeks. Standard verification takes 24 to 48 hours. Not in my branch. Simone leaned forward slightly. Is there a problem, Mr. Hayes? No problem. I just don't think First National is the right bank for you. Maybe try something more. Community-focused. The words hung in the air. Community-focused. Code for go to a bank for poor people. For black people. For people not like us. I'd like to speak to your supervisor, Simone said. Daniel's smile widened. I am the supervisor, branch manager, and I'm telling you we can't help you today. He stood up, walked to his office door, opened it. Maria will validate your parking. It was a dismissal, clear and cold. Simone stood, walked to the door, but instead of leaving, she stopped, turned. May I see your business card, Mr. Hayes? Why, for my records. Daniel pulled a card from his desk, handed it to her. Daniel Hayes, branch manager. Simone read it aloud, memorizing. Then she walked out of his office, back into the lobby. The line had grown. 20 people now. Phones still out. They'd been watching through the glass walls. Had seen the whole exchange. A middle-aged white woman approached Simone. Excuse me, I couldn't help but notice, did he just refuse to help you? Yes. That's not right. I've banked here for 15 years. He's never treated me like that. I know, Simone said. That's the problem. Simone walked back to Maria's desk. The young woman looked up, fear in her eyes. I'm sorry, Maria whispered. He does this to certain customers. I've complained to HR 3 times. Nothing happens. What's your name? Maria Rodriguez. How long have you worked here, Maria? 2 years. And Daniel Hayes has been your manager the whole time. Maria nodded. Her hands were shaking now. There are things he does, says, to female employees, especially women of color, but he's the branch manager. His father is regional VP. Nobody stops him. Simone felt something cold settle in her chest. His father is Richard Hayes. Yes. Do you know him? I used to. Simone pulled out her phone, dialed a number she knew by heart. Her corporate lawyer answered on the first ring. Marcus, I'm at First National Bank, Michigan Avenue branch. We have a situation. I need you here with Howard Mitchell. 10 minutes. She hung up, turned to the lobby, to the 20 people watching, to the phones recording. Ladies and gentlemen, Simone said. Her voice was calm, but carried. I want you to witness something. In 10 minutes, the CEO of this bank will walk through that door, and you're going to see what happens when people abuse power. Daniel had come out of his office. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Or what you'll call the police, please do. I'd love to explain to them why you refused service to a customer with valid ID and legitimate business documentation. Your ID looks fake, Simone held it up. To the cameras, to the witnesses. Illinois driver's license, valid through 2027. You can scan it, run it, verify it, but you won't, because this isn't about my ID. This is about something else entirely. Daniel's face was red now. I have the right to refuse service to anyone you find suspicious. Is that what I am, suspicious? Simone turned to the crowd. Show of hands, do I look suspicious to you? Not one hand went up. A man called out, You look like you're trying to open a bank account. Laughter, nervous but supportive. Daniel was losing control of the situation. I'm calling security. Good, Simone said. Call them. Call your father, too. Richard Hayes, Regional VP. I'm sure he'll want to be here for this. Daniel went very still. How do you know my father? We've met. 15 years ago, when I worked here, when he sexually harassed me for 8 months and then fired me for reporting it. The lobby went silent. Every phone pointed at Simone now. She knew this would go viral, had known it the moment she walked into the bank, had planned for it. That's slander, Daniel managed. It's truth, and in about 8 minutes I'm going to prove it. 7 minutes, actually. Because at 10:04 a.m. the doors of First National Bank opened and 2 men walked in. Marcus Chen Simone is corporate lawyer, 45 years old, Armani suit, briefcase that cost more than most people's monthly salary, and behind him, Howard Mitchell, 68 years old, CEO of the entire First National Bank network, 30 branches, $15 billion in assets, the man who signed everyone's paychecks. Daniel Hayes went white. Actually white, like someone had drained all the blood from his face. Mr. Mitchell, he stammered. We weren't expecting. Howard held up a hand, silencing him, then turned to Simone. Ms. Taylor, I got your lawyer's message. I came as quickly as I could. Please accept my deepest apologies for whatever has occurred here. The lobby was dead silent. 20 people phones raised recording the moment when they realized the woman in jeans and a hoodie wasn't who they'd thought she was. Simone watched Daniel's face cycle through emotions. Confusion, recognition, denial, terror. She'd seen that progression before. Seen it on Richard Hayes's face 15 years ago when HR had initially believed her complaint. Seen it on executives who'd underestimated her. Seen it on every person who'd dismissed her and then realized their mistake too late. A woman in line 60-something wide expensive purse whispered to her companion, Did he just say Taylor as in Taylor Tech? Her companion pulled out his phone, Googled. His eyes went wide. Holy shit, that's Simone Taylor. She's on the Forbes list, worth like $2 billion. And he kicked her out. He called her suspicious. Laughter, shocked. The kind of laughter that comes when reality breaks so completely that nothing else makes sense. A young black man, maybe 25, wearing a delivery uniform, had been waiting to cash a check. He called out, Yo, Mr. Hayes, you just discriminated against a billionaire CEO on camera, bro. You're done. More laughter, nervous now. People were realizing they were witnessing something historic, something that would be studied, memed, shared. A defining moment where power shifted visibly, undeniably in real time. Ms. Taylor, Daniel repeated. His voice had gone up an octave. As in, Simone Taylor, Howard said. CEO of Taylor Tech Solutions, one of the fastest-growing technology companies in America, valued at $2.3 billion, and the company we've been courting for 6 months to secure a $500 million business loan that would save this bank from the disastrous investments we made last quarter. He turned to Daniel. A loan that Mr. Hayes has apparently just jeopardized by refusing her service. Daniel looked like he was going to be sick. She didn't say I thought. You thought what? Simone's voice was quiet, deadly. That I was nobody. That I didn't deserve service, that I looked suspicious. She pulled documents from her bag. Here's my ID, real. Here's my business registration, legitimate. Here's my initial deposit check, $500,000. Valid. So what exactly was suspicious, Mr. Hayes? Daniel couldn't answer. Marcus stepped forward. Ms. Taylor came here to open an account for a new subsidiary. She deliberately dressed casually to see how First National treats regular customers. Turns out you treat them, or at least certain demographics, with discrimination and disrespect. That's not, Howard cut him off. Is this true? Did you refuse service to Ms. Taylor? She didn't have an appointment. Your website says walk-ins are welcome. The documentation looked questionable. It's a state-issued ID and legitimate business papers. I was following protocol. Protocol? Simone's voice rose for the first time. Is it protocol to tell customers to go to a community-focused bank? Is it protocol to refuse service based on how someone looks, or is that just how you personally operate? Daniel's mouth opened, closed. He looked at his father in the corner because Richard Hayes had just walked in. 63 years old, silver hair, regional VP. The man who'd made Daniel's career possible. The man who'd taught him that power meant never having to face consequences. Richard saw Simone. Recognition flickered across his face, then fear. Simone, he said, using her first name, familiar, possessive. I heard there was an incident. I'm sure we can sort this out. Can we? Simone turned to face him fully. Like we sorted things out 15 years ago when you cornered me in the supply room, when you sent me texts about my body, when you told me I'd never work in banking again if I reported you. Richard's face hardened. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't. You never do. 32 women, Richard, in 20 years. My lawyer has documentation, complaints, settlements, NDAs, all the ways this bank protected you while destroying the women you harassed. She pulled out a folder, handed it to Howard. 3 weeks ago, Illinois passed an extended statute of limitations law for sexual harassment cases. I'm suing you, Richard, and First National Bank. $10 million in damages. Criminal charges are pending. The trial starts next month. Howard's hands shook as he read the documents. Pages and pages of complaints, evidence, testimony. I wasn't aware. You weren't aware that your regional VP has been harassing women for 2 decades, or you didn't want to know? Simone's voice was cold now. Controlled fury. Because there's a difference, and both are unacceptable. Maria stepped forward, her voice small but steady. Miss Taylor, I'm Maria Rodriguez. I work here, and Daniel Hayes has been harassing me for 6 months. Touching, comments, threats. I have texts, recordings. I reported to HR twice. Nothing happened. Why not? Simone asked, but she already knew. Maria's eyes filled with tears. Because his father is regional VP, because everyone protects him, because when Jennifer, another teller, reported him last month, she was fired for performance issues 2 days later. I'm 23, single mom. I need this job, so I stayed quiet. She looked at the crowd, at the cameras. Until now. The lobby erupted, customers talking, phones everywhere. This was going to be the top story on every news site within an hour. Daniel tried to speak. She's lying, I have 12 witnesses, Maria said, her voice stronger now. Other employees, customers, people who saw and said nothing because they were scared too. Howard looked at Daniel, at Richard, at the folder of documentation, at Maria crying, at Simone standing calm and controlled while her world burned around her. Both of you, he said quietly. You're fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. HR will contact you about severance. Actually, no severance. You're terminated for cause. Criminal charges will be filed. I'm personally ensuring you never work in banking again. Richard stepped forward. You can't. I have lawyers, I'll sue. Sue away, Howard said. But right now, in front of 20 witnesses and dozens of cameras, you're done. Get out of my bank. Security escorted Daniel and Richard out. The perp walk, past customers, past employees, past phones recording everything. Outside news vans were already arriving. Someone had tipped them off. Maybe Maria, maybe one of the other employees, maybe someone in the crowd who'd seen enough injustice and wanted this one documented. Simone stood in the lobby, watching them go, feeling nothing. Not satisfaction, not revenge, just tired. So tired of fighting, of proving, of being underestimated. Howard approached. Ms. Taylor, I know this can't make up for what happened to you 15 years ago, or what's been happening to Maria and other employees, but I want to make this right. Tell me how. Simone looked at him, at this old white man who'd built an empire but hadn't noticed the rot inside it. You want to make it right. Here's how. She pulled out a document, typed, professional, comprehensive. These are my terms, non-negotiable. You accept them all or Taylor Tech takes our business elsewhere. And trust me, after this video goes viral, you need good PR more than we need your bank, Howard read. His face went from red to white to gray. This is extensive. This is justice, real justice, not just punishment, change. Simone's voice was firm. Take it or leave it. Howard looked at the document, at the lobby full of witnesses, at Marcus standing ready with contracts, at Maria waiting to see if her courage would matter. We'll take it, he said. All of it. The terms were simple but revolutionary. First, Daniel Hayes and Richard Hayes would be terminated immediately. Criminal charges filed for harassment, retaliation, and abuse of power. No settlements, no NDAs, public accountability. Second, First National would establish a $50 million harassment prevention fund, used for mandatory training, independent investigations, victim compensation, and cultural transformation. Third-party oversight. Public reporting. Third, Maria Rodriguez would be protected. Promoted into management training program. Legal fees paid. Direct reporting to CEO bypassing local management. Whistleblower protection guaranteed by contract. Fourth, all 32 previous harassment cases involving Richard Hayes would be reopened, investigated by independent counsel. Victims compensated. Public apology issued. Fifth, complete audit of First National's culture. Every manager evaluated. Anyone with harassment complaints in their file reviewed and likely terminated. New HR system. Anonymous reporting. Real consequences. Sixth, Taylor Tech Solutions would receive a board seat. Simone Taylor personally overseeing cultural change. Quarterly progress reports. If insufficient progress loan terms, renegotiate or cancel. Seventh, and finally, First National would fund a scholarship program for young women entering finance, named after all the victims, ensuring that the next generation would inherit a better industry. Howard signed. His hand shook, but his signature was clear. Marcus witnessed, made copies, sent them to board members, legal counsel, and the press. Within an hour, the video was viral. Black woman CEO denied service at bank. What happens next will shock you. Within 2 hours, CNN was calling, MSNBC, Fox News, everyone. Within 3 hours, hashtag First National Bank was trending, hashtag Believe Survivors, hashtag Systemic Change. Simone did one interview, local Chicago news. The reporter asked, how does it feel to get revenge on the bank that wronged you? Simone looked directly at the camera. This isn't revenge. Revenge would be destroying the bank, pulling our loan, letting 3,000 employees lose their jobs. Revenge is easy. She paused. This is justice. Justice is harder. Justice means fixing the system so this never happens again. Justice means protecting Maria and the 32 other women. Justice means using my power to ensure the next person who walks into that bank, regardless of race, gender, or how they're dressed, gets treated with respect. The reporter pressed. But didn't you want to punish them? To make them suffer? They are being punished. Daniel and Richard Hayes will go to prison. They'll never work in finance again. Their reputations are destroyed. That's punishment. Simone leaned forward. But punishment alone doesn't create change. It doesn't protect future victims. It doesn't transform culture. That's why the terms include training, oversight, scholarship, systemic reform. That's why Maria gets promoted instead of just compensated. That's why we're reopening all 32 cases. So this is about more than you. This was never about me. It's about every woman who's been harassed, every customer who's been discriminated against, every person who's been judged by their appearance instead of their character. I had the power to make noise. Most people don't. So I used that power to create change that helps everyone. The interview went viral. 50 million views. Comments flooded in. This is how you use privilege. She could have just pulled the loan. Instead, she fixed the whole system. This is what real leadership looks like. But also, she's too aggressive. Why didn't she just accept the apology? She's making a big deal out of nothing. Simone read those comments, smiled grimly. Some people would never understand, would never see that asking for basic respect wasn't aggression, that demanding accountability wasn't making a big deal, that expecting change wasn't unreasonable. Those people were part of the problem, and Simone was done explaining herself to the problem. The trial took 6 months. Richard Hayes fought every charge. Hired expensive lawyers Morrison and Phillips, the kind of firm that specialized in defending indefensible men. They charged $1,500 an hour and earned every penny by being ruthlessly effective at discrediting victims. They claimed Simone was bitter, that she was making it up, that 15 years was too long to suddenly remember details. They pointed to her success. If she was so traumatized, how did she build a billion-dollar company? As if trauma and success were mutually exclusive. As if surviving somehow proved you were never hurt. They claimed the other 32 women were lying, jumping on the bandwagon, seeking attention, money, revenge. They pointed out inconsistencies in testimony as if trauma survivors remember everything perfectly, as if fear and stress don't affect memory, as if the way human brains process violation can be reduced to a courtroom timeline. That this was a conspiracy, orchestrated by Simone for competitive business reasons. The jury didn't buy it, maybe because they heard from 32 women, not all at once, over weeks, one after another taking the stand telling their stories. Sarah Martinez, 45, had been an executive assistant in 2004. Richard had cornered her in the parking garage, touched her inappropriately. When she reported it, she was fired for insubordination. She'd been blacklisted, couldn't get another banking job. Ended up working retail for 10 years before finally rebuilding her career in a different industry. Jennifer Park, 38, had been a loan officer in 2012. Richard had sent her explicit texts, made comments about her body, pressured her for dates. When she refused, her performance reviews suddenly tanked. She was put on a performance improvement plan, the corporate kiss of death. She quit before they could fire her, lost her house, her car, nearly lost custody of her kids. Angela Washington, 52, had been a branch manager in 2008, Richard's direct report. He'd promised her promotion if she played nice. When she didn't, he sabotaged her projects, gave her impossible targets, set her up to fail, then demoted her. She'd sued. First National had settled for $75,000 with an NDA. She'd signed because she needed the money, spent 15 years staying silent while Richard kept harassing women. Each testimony added weight, added truth, added undeniable evidence that this wasn't isolated, wasn't consensual, wasn't misunderstood. This was a pattern, deliberate, systematic, predatory. They heard testimony from HR employees who'd been told to bury complaints, from executives who'd known and looked away, from Richard's own secretary who'd watched him harass women for 20 years and finally found the courage to testify. Guilty. 8 counts of sexual harassment, 3 counts of retaliation, 2 counts of witness tampering, 12 years in prison. Daniel Hayes took a plea deal, testified against his father, still got 6 years. First National Bank paid $25 million in fines, agreed to 5 years of federal oversight, completely restructured their HR department, terminated 8 more managers who'd protected harassers. The cultural transformation was real. Mandatory training every quarter, anonymous reporting system, third-party investigators. Within a year, complaints were up 300%, not because harassment increased, but because people finally believed they'd be heard. Within 2 years, turnover among women employees dropped 60%. Satisfaction scores rose. The bank was healing, slowly, painfully, but healing. Maria Rodriguez became Simone's project, not in a condescending way, not in a charity way, in a mentorship way, the kind where you see potential and invest in it deliberately, strategically, generously. Simone had Maria shadow her, brought her to board meetings, let her sit in on executive strategy sessions, taught her about business, not just theory, but practice, how to read a balance sheet, how to negotiate a contract, how to spot a bad deal disguised as a good opportunity. But more than that, Simone taught Maria about power, real power. Not the Daniel Hayes kind power over people power through fear power that comes from crushing others, but power with people, power through competence, power that lifts. Leadership isn't dominance, Simone told Maria during one of their weekly coffee meetings. Men like Daniel think power means making people afraid, but that's not power. That's insecurity with a title. She stirred her coffee. Real power is when people follow you because they trust you, when they perform better because you believed in them, when they grow because you created space for growth. Maria took notes. She always took notes. How do you do that? Create space for growth. You delegate meaningful work, not just tasks. You give feedback that teaches, not just criticizes. You take responsibility for failures and share credit for successes. You remember that everyone you meet knows something you don't, and you create a culture where speaking up is rewarded, not punished. She paused, looked at Maria directly. That's what Daniel never learned. He thought fear equaled respect. But people who fear you will never tell you the truth. And leaders who don't hear truth make catastrophic mistakes. Maria learned fast, absorbed everything. Within 6 months, she was managing projects Simone had initially planned to handle personally. Within a year, she was managing the bank's new diversity initiative, ironic given where she'd come from. Within 2 years, Simone recruited her to Taylor Tech. "I want you on my team," Simone told her, "not because of what happened. Never because of that. I want you because you're talented, sharp. You see problems before they become crises. You build consensus without compromising vision. You're exactly the kind of leader we need." She paused. "But also, I want you to see what's possible when women support each other. When we use our power to lift others up instead of protecting our own positions. Your success is my success. That's how this should work." Maria accepted. Started as a junior project manager. Within 3 years, she was senior manager. Within 5, director. Within 10, vice president of operations. $450,000 salary. Stock options. Benefits. Stability. The life her mother had dreamed of, but never achieved. 10 years after the incident at First National Bank, Simone stood on a stage at a women's leadership conference. The Chicago Convention Center. 3,000 women in the audience, every seat filled. Standing room only in the back. Cameras everywhere, not just media, but live stream. 50,000 people watching remotely. This was the annual Women in Finance Summit, the biggest gathering of female financial professionals in North America. And Simone Taylor was the keynote speaker. Maria stood beside her, confident now, professional, powerful, wearing a tailored suit that cost more than her entire wardrobe had 10 years ago. No longer the scared 23-year-old in the too big bank uniform, now 33, vice president of operations at Taylor Tech Solutions, making $450,000 a year, stock options worth another $2 million, benefits, stability. The life her mother, a housekeeper who'd raised 3 kids alone, had dreamed of but never achieved. The kind of life that was supposed to be impossible for girls from the South Side whose fathers left and whose mothers worked 3 jobs. But here, Maria stood, living proof that impossible was just a word people used when they didn't want to do the work. 10 years ago, Simone began, her voice carried across the massive hall, steady, clear, the voice of someone who'd spent 2 decades learning to speak truth to power without apology. I walked into a bank and was denied service because of how I looked. The manager assumed I was nobody, that I didn't deserve respect, that I could be dismissed. She paused. Let that sink in. He was wrong. But more importantly, even if I had been nobody, even if I'd been a broke graduate student with no connections and no power, I still deserved respect. That's the point. Dignity isn't conditional on success. It's not something you earn by being important. It's a basic human right. The audience was silent. 3,000 women who'd all experienced some version of this, who'd all been underestimated, dismissed, told they didn't belong, who'd all had to fight twice as hard for half the recognition. I had a choice that day, Simone continued. I could have destroyed the bank, pulled our $500 million loan, let it collapse, let 3,000 employees lose their jobs. That would have felt good. Revenge always feels good in the moment. She smiled, bitter, knowing. But revenge only punishes the past. It doesn't protect the future. So I chose justice instead. I chose systemic change. I chose to use my power to ensure this wouldn't happen to the next person, or the person after that. She gestured to Maria. This is Maria Rodriguez. 10 years ago, she was being harassed by the same family that had harassed me 15 years before. She was 23, single mom, working as a bank teller, scared, trapped. She had every reason to stay silent. Most people do. The stakes are too high, the risk too great. But she spoke up, and we listened. Maria stepped forward. Her hands didn't shake anymore. She'd done this speech 20 times now, at conferences, at colleges, at corporate training sessions. Each time it got a little easier. Each time someone came up after and said, "Thank you, I needed to hear that." "Ms. Taylor saved my life," Maria said. The microphone caught every word, amplified it across thousands of speakers. Not by destroying the bank, not by getting revenge, but by creating a system where my voice mattered, where speaking up led to change, not retaliation, where justice was possible. Her voice was strong now, clear, the voice of someone who'd found her power and learned to use it. I'm 33 now, vice president at Taylor Tech Solutions. I make $500,000 a year. I have 2 kids, 7 and 5, a house in a good neighborhood, good schools, stability, security, the kind of life my mother dreamed of but never achieved, the kind of life I was supposed to believe was impossible for someone like me. She paused. But more than that, I have dignity. I have power. And I use that power the way Ms. Taylor taught me, to protect people who don't have it yet, to create systems that work for everyone, not just people who look like the old gatekeepers, to ensure that the next Maria, the next scared 23-year-old working 2 jobs and raising kids alone, doesn't have to choose between dignity and employment. The audience erupted. Standing ovation, not polite golf claps, real applause, the kind that comes from recognition, from seeing yourself in someone else's story, from hope. 3,000 women standing, some crying, some cheering, all of them understanding that they'd just witnessed something rare, proof that speaking up could work, that justice was possible, that the system could change. A woman in the 3rd row, Asian, maybe 40, expensive suit, stood with tears streaming down her face. She pulled out her phone, typed rapidly, sent an email to HR at her company. The email she'd been too scared to send for 6 months, reporting her supervisor. Finally. Because if Maria could do it, maybe she could too. A young woman in the back, 22, fresh out of college, first job in finance, took notes. wrote down Maria's words about using power to protect people without it. She'd remember that. 15 years from now, when she was the one with power, she'd remember. This was how change happened. Not with one hero, but with a chain. Simone to Maria to this audience to thousands more. Each person choosing courage. Each person using their power responsibly. Each person refusing to stay silent. After the speech, the line to talk to Simone and Maria stretched across the convention hall. Women waiting an hour, 2 hours just to say thank you, to share their stories, to ask for advice. A white woman, 50-something executive at Goldman Sachs. I was harassed for years. Stayed silent because I thought speaking up would end my career. Your story gave me courage. I reported last week. They're investigating. Thank you. A Latina woman, 35, branch manager at Wells Fargo. I have an employee being harassed right now. I didn't know how to help without risking my own job. But I'm going to. I'm going to protect her the way you protected Maria. A black woman, 28, associate at a venture capital firm. Everyone told me I was being too sensitive, that I should just deal with it. Your speech validated everything I felt. I'm not crazy. He's wrong, and I'm going to do something about it. One after another, stories, gratitude, stories. Resolve. This was the ripple effect, the compound interest of courage. Every woman Simone helped became someone who could help others. Every story shared became permission for someone else to speak. Every victory proved that justice was possible. Hours later, after the last person had left, after the hall had emptied, Simone and Maria sat in the green room, exhausted, drained, but satisfied. Did we make a difference? Maria asked. I mean, really, all those women said they'll speak up. But will they? When it gets hard, when the consequences are real, will they follow through? Simone thought about it. Some will, some won't. That's human. Fear is real. Consequences are real. Not everyone has the resources or support to fight. She paused. But even if only 10% follow through, that's 300 women from today alone. 300 women protecting future victims, creating safer workplaces, changing culture. And those 300 will inspire others. It compounds. Is that enough? It has to be, because the alternative is despair, and despair means they win. Maria nodded, pulled out her phone, showed Simone a text. From Jennifer, the teller who'd been fired from First National for reporting Daniel. She'd watched the live stream. The text read, "Thank you. I've been silent for 10 years. Ashamed. Like I did something wrong. Your speech reminded me I didn't. He did. I'm ready to be part of the lawsuit, to add my testimony, to stop being afraid." Simone felt tears in her eyes. That's enough. That's everything. They drove home separately. Maria to her house in the suburbs, the good neighborhood, the good schools, the life that seemed impossible a decade ago. She pulled into her driveway, saw her kids through the window. 7-year-old Sophia, 5-year-old Miguel, named after Maria's mother and brother. They were doing homework. Her husband was cooking dinner. Normal, safe, stable, everything she'd fought for. Sophia looked up, saw her mother, ran to the door. "Mommy, did you do the speech?" "I did, baby." Were people scared? Some were, but they listened anyway. Because you were brave. Maria knelt down, looked her daughter in the eyes. Because I learned that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing the right thing anyway. Sophia hugged her. When I grow up, I'm going to be brave like you. You already are, baby. You already are. Simone drove home to her brownstone in Lincoln Park, the house she and her husband had bought 20 years ago when it was in a transitional neighborhood, before Lincoln Park was expensive, before tech money and finance bros gentrified everything. They'd stayed, watched the neighborhood change, raised their kids here, built a life. Her husband met her at the door. How'd it go? Good, hard, but good. He kissed her forehead. I'm proud of you. You know that, right? What you did with the bank, with Maria, with all of it, I'm so damn proud. Simone leaned into him, let herself be held. She was tired, so tired. 2 decades of fighting, of proving, of using her success to protect others. It was exhausting, but it mattered. That's what kept her going. The knowledge that it mattered, that every woman she helped, every system she changed, every Maria she mentored, it all mattered. Her daughter, 17, now applying to colleges, came downstairs. "Mom, can we talk about my essay?" "Sure, honey. What's it about?" "It's about you, about the bank, about choosing justice over revenge. My English teacher said it was the most powerful essay she's read in 20 years of teaching." Simone felt her throat tighten. "Can I read it?" Her daughter handed her the printed pages. Simone read. About watching her mother fight. About learning that power meant responsibility. About understanding that success without justice was just well-decorated oppression. About choosing to use privilege to open doors, not close them behind you. About being the daughter of Simone Taylor and understanding that legacy wasn't just about money, it was about how you changed the world. Simone finished reading, looked at her daughter through tears. "This is beautiful. I learned from the best." That night, lying in bed, Simone thought about Daniel Hayes, about Richard, about all the men who'd harassed her, who'd tried to destroy her, who'd thought they'd won. They were in prison now, or working low-wage jobs they couldn't quit because they were blacklisted, or living with the knowledge that their names were synonymous with sexual harassment. They'd lost, completely, permanently. But that wasn't what kept Simone awake. What kept her awake was thinking about the women they hadn't harassed, the Marias they'd never get to victimize, the young girls who'd grow up in workplaces where speaking up led to justice, not retaliation. That's what made it worth it. Not the punishment, the protection, not the revenge, the prevention. Simone closed her eyes. Tomorrow she'd wake up and keep fighting, keep building, keep using her power to protect people without it. Because that's what justice looked like. Not a moment, a movement, not revenge, revolution. And she was just getting started.